So good evening and good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are, if it's afternoon. Let's start again, like before, with taking a few minutes to correct the motivation and in terms of refuge and bodhicitta. In the last couple of days, we have had teachings from Khenso Rinpoche, Geshe Tastering, at Brisbane, and he taught the three principal aspects of the path, and he made it a point to use a section of the text for developing renunciation and then bodhicitta. And I thought it's a fantastic meditation. We're not going to do a very long meditation, but it's nice to maybe combine that also with the way that we correct our motivation. And again, I think that it's there are different ways in which we can correct our motivation daily to keep it fresh and to keep it deep and to look at it from different perspectives. So although it is evening now in the US and approaching noontime where we are at, and also in Japan, it's still kind of, I think, a good way of correcting our motivation in the morning or in the evening. And so let's first off take maybe a couple of seconds or half a minute to make sure that our posture is right, that it feels comfortable. It's good to keep the back upright, but not rigid or tense. We can take a couple of deep breaths, thinking that we're withdrawing our mind from the outside to the inside. I'm going to quickly scan our body from our toes all the way up to the crown to make sure that our body feels completely comfortable and at ease. A comfortable body will better support the mind that is open and spacious and relaxed. And so if we find any point of tension in the body, just release it with an out breath. Bring some softness and relaxation into that part of the body, beginning with the toes and the soles of our feet. Then moving up to the legs and the knees and the thighs. And also trying to bring some softness into the abdomen. And keeping our chest open, allowing the breathing to occur completely naturally. And we'll let our shoulders drop. Don't hold them tensely. Making sure that the palms and the arms are also at ease, relaxed. And traveling with our awareness towards the face. If you can keep your mouth slightly open, the tip of the tongue is resting on the upper palate. And often we hold on to a lot of tension or stress in our jaws and the median point between the two jaws. And most of the time, we're not even aware of it. So as much as you can, try to relax that area. And also softening our cheeks and our eyes. and releasing any tension we might be holding in our forehead. And so next, we're going to turn our attention to the breathing cycle and count a round of 21 breaths. Each breath is an anchor for a mind that becomes more and more focused, stable, and in correcting a motivation at the beginning of our session today, reminding ourselves that we have obtained a precious human life. We have all the external and internal conditions that make it absolutely possible for us in a perfect way to make the most out of our Buddha potential, to develop perfect qualities, and to eliminate all the faults, all afflictive emotions. And not only it is very difficult to find such perfect opportunity, there is no time to spare, for first of death is certain. It might be just behind the corner, around the corner. It might happen in a few years from now. We have absolutely no guarantee with respect to the time of death. And the only thing that will be of help for us at the end would be all the positive imprints and habits we have created in this and previous lives. And all the other things that we spend so much time on. Our friends and relatives, our possessions, our wealth, and also our body, all of them will be left behind. And if we are not ready to let it go, there will be a lot of anguish towards the end. And so we think that, as Lama Tsongkhapa said in his three principal aspects of the path, we're swept away by the current of the four powerful rivers. And that we're going through samsara again and again and again without having any control. We are born without control. We age without control. Though we do not want to become sick, we get sick. And at the end, we die, even if we don't wish to. And so we are swept away by the power, by the force of these raging rivers, which are controlled by our own ignorance and anger and attachment and the karma that we create. And so not only we are carried away by this raging river, we're also completely bound, tied up by the tight bonds of karma. So difficult to undo. And so we think of the daily actions that we do day in and day out, and how hard it is for us to keep to God pure ethical discipline, to abstain from the 10 non-virtues. And under the force of previously accumulated karma, again and again, we are born in cyclic existence, so hard to undo this mechanism. And so thinking of ourselves being tossed into a raging river of birth, sickness, aging, and death, and not being able to swim to the banks of the river to move our hands or legs, completely tied up by karma. But not only that, there is a thick iron net that is covering our body. And this iron net is the net of self-grasping. This idea that we exist in and of ourselves. And everyone around us also exists in this way. And all other things exist inherently, truly, from their own side. And so this combination of being tied by karma and our own ignorance means that there is very little room to maneuver in that raging river. We're completely enveloped by the total darkness of ignorance, not knowing what is the right thing to do and what should we avoid. And even if we know that, it's so hard to put it into practice. We find ourselves completely in the darkness. So we are endlessly born in cyclic existence again and again and again without having control. And all along we are tormented ceaselessly by the 3 types of suffering. So we all know the suffering of pain, physical pain, and mental anguish. But also there is the pain in suffering of change, the pleasure that we experience. And most of our life in samsara, we pursue after pleasure and comfort and health and security. But there are short-term happiness and pleasure and comforts. Only short-term, they never last. And maybe they will end up in disappointment, but even worse than that, they end up in pain often. And on account of pursuing those fleeting sensations of happiness and pleasure, we create more negative actions. Inevitably, sometimes we take advantage of others, even if we do not want to. We do things at the expense of others. But the most fundamental dissatisfactory state is having a body and a mind such as the one that we have now, which from one perspective are good because we have freedoms and richnesses, but still, the moment we are born with a body like that, in a process that was controlled by karma and afflictive emotions, it is guaranteed that there will be sickness, aging, and death. There is no avoiding that. And so it brings about unwanted states in this life. Disappointment, looking for things, not being able to find them, having to be separated again and again from things that cause us pleasure, and meeting up again and again with what causes us displeasure. Having a body such as this guarantees that. And also because we have a body such as this that requires pleasure and comfort, sustenance, and so forth, we become attached to pleasures or to the sources of pleasures. And we act in a negative way that will compound our pain and suffering in future lifetimes as well. And therefore we are conditioned for pain and suffering in this and future lives. So this is our state in samsara. And so when we turn our focus to other living beings, we recognize that everyone around us go through a similar process of birth, sickness, aging, and death, and having no freedom and no control. And so we think that for the sake of using our life in the best possible way to break through the cycle of birth and death, to eliminate our ignorance, but also to be able to be of utmost benefit to all those around us that have been our mothers countless times since time without beginning and up until now. We are going to do whatever we can to develop our mind in a positive way. And to do so, we rely upon the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha, the teacher, the Dharma, the teachings that the Buddha gave, but more deeply, the realization of reality, perceptual realization of emptiness, and the cessation of ignorance, anger, and attachment. These are the true refuges, the actual refuges. And the community of Sangha, those that have developed such realizations that can help us to implement, to practice, to study the teachings of the Buddha, so that we can become Buddhas in the future with perfect ability to be of benefit to ourselves and others. We will embody the Dharma. At any given time, we'll see reality exactly as it is. And at the same time, be able to be of perfect benefit to others, acting as Arya Sangha. And so with this deep sense of reliance upon the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, we think I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By accumulations I gather through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and Supreme Assembly, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. By accumulations I gather through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By the accumulations I gather through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. All right. And so what I wanted to do today is to look at the power of repudiation and the power of dedication. Now, Barbara, I think, sent through a question at the end of last week's session. So I copied and pasted this question, and I thought about it. I had a read through that question again a couple of days ago, and I thought that it links quite nicely to what I wanted to speak about today. So I will, at some point, kind of link in your question, Barbara, into this topic. And so we spoke a lot about the power of intention. That's the first power, in which we set a positive intention as we wake up in the morning. So we hope that through becoming familiar with setting that positive intention and also meaning it deep, from the bottom of our heart, meaning having that intentionality to be of benefit to others, or to abstain from, at least to abstain from harming others, but doing so on the basis of going for refuge and developing bodhicitta. And as we go for refuge through understanding not only our situation in samsara, but also understanding that so long as we haven't developed perfect knowledge of everything that exists in its utmost extent, but also all the different layers of reality, we're not going to be able to be of perfect benefit to others. And therefore, we think that so long as I'm limited, I can't really be of benefit to others. This is what scares me, being limited. So we incorporate that into the causes for going for refuge. We do not want to be limited in our capacity to be of benefit to others. For we want to become Buddha, so we also then develop bodhicitta. And we want to become Buddhas in order to be of perfect benefit to others. And to be of perfect benefit to others would mean, there are different things that we can do for the benefit of others, but the best thing that we can do for the benefit of others, in a sense that will bring long-term happiness and well-being to others, would be to teach them the Dharma. So rather than thinking that what I need to do now is to become a Lama or to become a spiritual teacher and so forth, I mean, this is definitely something that we want to do in the future, but what we want to do now is to at least create the cause and conditions for obtaining the state of Buddhahood in the future, so that from the state of Buddhahood, we'd be able to teach the Dharma to others so that they will know what is the best way to accumulate positive actions, what is the way to develop wisdom that will eliminate ignorance. This is what this is the way that we set our intention. And so if we set a strong intention in the morning, hopefully it will also have this lasting effect over the things that we do throughout the day. And so during the day, we habituate our mind with positive actions, and also with applying local antidotes to afflictive states of mind when they arise. So we have to recognize them, first of all, as they arise. Shantideva uses a really nice analogy in this 7th chapter of his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life. He says that when you go to the battlefield, and let's say that when we think about using those images of time of old, so you go into the battlefield and you're holding a shield, right? So you're holding a shield in one hand and a spear or a sword in the other. So you have to kind of protect yourself with a shield, but you also have to attack with a sword. So we do the same things in our practice, in a sense that we hold the shield, we protect ourselves from disturbing emotions, from afflictions. And so first of all, we need to know what they are, but we also need some mindfulness to recognize them as they arise. And so we hold, as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, as Geshe Langye Tampa says, I will forcefully confront and avert it. So this is the protection that we develop: mindfulness, but also alertness or introspection. But then also on the other, with the other hand, we are holding a spear or a sword, and we need to attack our self-cherishing and our self-grasping. And we spoke about it in the previous session in terms of the power of repudiation or expulsion. What we want to expel is self-cherishing and self-grasping. And so particularly whenever a disturbing emotion arises, an affliction, we can recognize how it is based upon a perception of ourselves as existing in and of ourselves independently. So we can remind ourselves that, first of all, this grasping of myself in such a solid way, solid, strong, perfect way, this is not in line with reality. That's the first thing. But also, we have a termite inspection happening as we speak. Hey, sorry. You can do your inspection, no worries. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. We're living in a termite Disneyland. And so, have you found anything? No. That's out of the building. All right, that's out of the building. Yeah. I think that kind of our center exists for 50 years, and kind of for 50 years we've been having, I wouldn't say conflicts, but relationship with the termites. So this is a termite person behind me looking for them. And so we're trying to break the link between self-cherishing and self-grasping. And so self-cherishing, it is found within all the afflictions that arises in our mind, but also self-cherishing is present, self-grasping is present with all of them. So we completely buy into those appearances of independent existence, ourself existing in and of ourselves, and others existing completely in and of themselves. And so when we actually look at the process, the evolutionary process of ignorance, so ignorance, first of all, arises, beginningless ignorance, innate ignorance. It arises with trusting or believing the appearances that are done to my mind. So when I think of myself, and when I think of you guys, or when I think of everything else around me, there's all those thoughts come together with appearances of independent existence, as if there is a core of existence, an essence of existence, which doesn't depend upon anything else. It is independent, existing by its own power, through its own volition, without my mind calling it by a certain name. Like, for example, now when I look at each and every one of you, so there's Paula and Eva and Barbara and Ralph. When I look at each and every one of you, it seems that without my mind seeing you in a particular way, you exist like that from your own side, by your own power. And so not only those appearances don't on my mind, I completely buy into them. All of us buy into those appearances because this is what we're used to since time without beginning and up until now. But then we remind ourselves that things do not exist in that way. They exist in a different way. It's not that they do not exist at all. It's not that I do not exist or you guys do not exist. We do exist, but not in the way that we appear to our mind. We exist, it depends upon many things. So it depends upon cause and conditions, it depends upon parts, but more fundamentally, we exist in being merely imputed. It depends upon our body and it depends upon our mind. And so ignorance doesn't see it in this way. Ignorance completely believes that we exist independently. And so, and the moment this ignorance operates in our mind and we buy into that story, then we start to pay incorrect mental attention to things around us. We exaggerate positive or negative qualities. And so because of ignorance, for example, when I see you, what I see is your body. When I see you guys, I see a body, and then I think, oh, this is Paula, this is Eva, this is Rolf, this is Barbara. But then because of ignorance that believes that you guys exist completely in and of yourself, the second stage would be to superimpose positive qualities on negative qualities. Now with you guys, I don't think that I have any superimposition currently of negative qualities. All of you seem to be wonderful people, but still there's an appearance of wonderful people that exist in and of themselves. And so I have, when I think of myself, I have positive qualities and I have faults. And also all the people around us have positive qualities and faults. But this incorrect mental attention is then choosing to emphasize positive qualities and therefore ignore faults, or to emphasize faults and thereby not recognize good qualities. And because we have those minds that emphasize either positive qualities or negative qualities, we become attached or we become angry. Particularly when we try to meditate or to recognize how anger and attachment operate, we can see that when we get angry with a certain person, we cannot really see the positive qualities. We think that they have absolutely negative qualities and they are in the object, in that person, from the own side. And when we're completely in love with a certain person, we turn a blind eye to the fact that they have faults. Now, it's not that we want to think of the faults in order to dislike them, but we want to undo this mind that completely believes that the person is a wonderful person, and if we don't see the person every day, or if we don't get in touch with, if we don't have a relationship with that person, or that, if I'm gonna, in some situation or another, I'm gonna be away from that person, there's no way that I can be happy because my happiness is within that person. And so, first of all, as we say, ignorance that believes that things exist independently, and therefore also they have absolutely good qualities or absolutely negative qualities in the object itself, and then anger and attachment arise, and then we perform actions which compound our suffering in this life, but also in future lifetimes. And so to break that combination of ignorance and self-cherishing, we can remind ourselves that things do not exist in the way that they appear to us. Now, it's not going to work out very strongly at the beginning. It requires a lot of habituation and I think thinking, analysis, investigation, in order to start to reduce the power of ignorance. Reminding ourselves that things do not exist in a concrete and independent way, but they exist as being merely imputed, which means that when I see someone as being very disagreeable, very annoying, kind of all my unhappiness is in that person. Or when I see someone is as wonderful, or not someone, also just another thing, like for example, only if I travel overseas, that will make me truly happy. Only if I buy a new thing, that will make me truly happy. As if my happiness is in the object, not within the mind that sees that object in a particular way. And so we remind ourselves that things do not exist in the way that it appears, in that my happiness or suffering are not within the object, but it is in a mind that imputes them in a particular way. And so we habituate ourselves during the day with reminding ourselves that things do not exist in the way that they appear, but also with applying local antidotes to afflictions when they arise. And also we habituate ourselves with trying as much as possible to maintain a positive frame of mind, to remind ourselves daily of of love and compassion and patience and giving and so forth. And then we also want to remind ourselves in all of those afflictive states of mind that self-cherishing is strongly present. And so we can say that there are two levels to self-cherishing. One that is first of seeking my own happiness alone. Maybe, it's an obstacle for liberation. But if we keep it just as, I just want to be happy. If we keep it at this level, it's not that bad. If we take it to the next level, in which we think, I want to be happy, and even if it comes at the expense of others, I don't care. Or it is a pity, but at least I got what I want. This is a negative of self-cherishing. So this type of self-cherishing, the one in which we think, I want to be happy, I want to be well, and it doesn't matter if I harm others. It doesn't matter if it comes at the expense of others. My happiness is more important than the happiness of others. This is a problem. This is self-cherishing. And as many of the teachings that we receive, Mahayana teachings say, this is a demon. This is a mind of a demon. In that, so long as we, I think that Shantideva says in his Kata Bodhisattva Way of Life, I think that is maybe in the 8th chapter, he says that because of this mind of self-cherishing, not only we haven't so far been able to attain the state of Buddhahood, even within samsara, we find no happiness and no joy because of self-cherishing. It is the foundation of everything that goes wrong within our life, you can say. And it is said that the opposite of that, cherishing others, is the foundation of everything that will go well, everything that is good, all good qualities. So Buddhas attain the state of Buddhahood through cherishing others. We try to accomplish our own happiness with cherishing ourselves. We seeing our happiness to be far more important than the happiness of others. So Shantideva says, who's right and who is wrong? Look at the Buddhas and look at ourselves. We still find ourselves in the mire of cyclic existence again and again, being completely bogged in that mire because of our own self-cherishing. And so when we then think of situations that we encounter daily and our reaction to those situations, when we react with fear and frustration and jealousy and pride and attachment and so forth, then not only we can remind ourselves, kind of raise the flag that this is based on ignorance and incorrect mental attention. That's the first flag. The second flag is that this is also because of cherishing ourselves, that we cherish our own happiness and well-being more than we cherish the happiness and well-being of others. And so, meditationists are there to listen to the teachings. Well, I hope so. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty bad. Anyway, Nitya Eva says, that way of thinking causes environmental distraction. Definitely. I mean, environmental distraction, I think the first and foremost is based on you can say ignorance, definitely, but then strong sense of attachment that believes that the resources that we have are unlimited. Not only unlimited, that even if we recognize that there are limitations, we want to get them first. Doesn't matter what's happening to others. I know that they're limited, and therefore I need to get them. I need to get as much as I can before it runs out. And so we have self-cherishing and self-grasping, and we want to break the connection between them. So during the day, we, as much as possible, try to shift our perspective to cherish others more than we cherish ourselves. To know if there's happiness and well-being, resources, pleasure, comforts, comfortable seat, the first good portion of food or whatever, we want to, we can habituate our mind with, first of all, thinking of others, thinking of the welfare of others, and then thinking of our own welfare, our own happiness, after we have taken care of others. It's not always easy, but we can see that in different areas of our life, different days, we can do certain things that will be of benefit to others. First and foremost, benefit to others, and only then we can think of ourselves. So we habituate our mind with that, with reminding ourselves of, on one hand, that things do not exist in the way that they appear. On the other hand, we remind ourselves that self-cherishing is the foundation of all of our problems, and cherishing others will bring us at the end to the state of Buddhahood. So that is, you can say, a combination of the practice of habituation and also planting good imprints upon the mental continuum, white seeds, but also at the same time, it is the power of expulsion. We expel, we repudiate self-cherishing and self-grasping. But then it is also said that kind of when the power of repudiation, which is often also called the power of remorse, is practiced, it is also linked up with practice of purifying negativities, negative actions. And often we dedicate the last part of the day before we kind of wrap up things and go to sleep, we try to do a practice of purifying negativities. And so it is said that there's not even a single negativity that can remain as it is if we apply the 4 powers of the antidote, the 4 antidotal powers. Nothing can withstand, no negativity can withstand these 4 powers. And so the 4 powers, let's look at the 4 powers. This one. Oh, where are you? All right. So the 4 powers, we have the power of support, the power of regret, the power of restraint, and the power of thorough application of the antidote. And so of these 4 powers, the most important power is the power of regret. And so if we take up a practice of purification, Vajrasattva, 35 Buddhas, or any other practice that involves purification, without regret, it's not going to work out. The most important factor is regret. And so to have regret for negative actions we have done before, we need to be able to recognize negative actions for being negative actions. I mean, we need to know what we're working with. And so we start, first of all, with the basic presentation of things which are negative by nature, which are called, we can call them natural misdeeds. That's the first thing. And the second thing is prescribed misdeeds. So what's the difference between these two? Well, natural misdeeds are things which the Buddha spoke of, which are negative by nature. So the 10 non-virtues. This is where we begin with. The 10 non-virtues are negative by nature, in a sense that killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, idle chatter, covetousness, malice, wrong views, those things, actions, which are negative by nature, regardless of whether you're Buddhist or not. You can be Buddhist, you can be Christian, you can be Jewish, you can be Muslim, you can be Hindu, you can be completely secular, not following any tradition whatsoever. Still, those actions are negative by nature, whether we accept them or do not accept them. They're negative by nature in that anyone that performs those actions, killing, stealing, and so forth, will experience the result of suffering here or hereafter, in this life or in future lives. And so without, first of all, being able to recognize those 10 non-virtues, but also not just recognize them. When you look at, for example, Lama Tsongkhapa's extensive presentation of the source of the path of enlightenment, he gives a fantastic presentation of karma. And so it says that when we look at the 10 paths of actions, not just action, it calls that a path of action, which what it means is to say that there is an evolution to a certain action. It begins with, first of all, identifying the object. So we have a discrimination of the object. We have a certain affliction that is involved with the performance of that action. We have an attitude. Then we have the actual performance. Then we have the culmination of the action. If we are happy about doing something negative, or that we have a sense of regret for having done that. Like, for example, here, at Chamresic Institute, as I said, we have a lot of termites. So we live in the bush. We live in the house of the termites. It's not that they live in our house. We live in their house. And so our gompa is made of wood. So that's the sustenance and food for termites. It's our fault for building a gompa that is made of wood. It's our fault. And so, but still, we have to take measures to control the termites. I mean, when I say control the termites, it's like trying to whitewash termites extermination, isn't it? We have to control them. They're uncontrollable. We have to control them. And so, unfortunately, we have to do that, because otherwise we won't have a gompa. But still, we perform an action. But in the culmination part, rather than feeling that, yeah, we got them, rather than feeling like that, the things that we do, like, for example, we sponsor animal liberation activities. We do, we always including them in their prayers and so forth. So there are different things that we do in order to make amends. But we still recognize those actions to be negative actions. And so we look at the different parts of actions. We want to be as informed as possible in order to at least reduce the efficacy of the negative actions that we take. And similarly, also with the positive actions that we take, we also want to know all those details in order to make them bigger and stronger and more powerful, make karma strong again, powerful again. And so when we think about it, when we think of the power of regret, first of all, we need to recognize negative actions for being what they are. So the 10 non-virtues, these are things which are negative by nature, natural misdeeds. And the other things which are called prescribed misdeeds, which means that there might be things which are not negative by nature, but if we have vows, if we have taken, for example, the refuge vow or the bodhisattva vow, or if we are monastics, there are things which are not negative by nature, but still they're against the vows that we have. And so, for example, I think that the easiest example for that is, for example, alcohol. So alcohol is considered to be something that is not negative by nature. If we drink alcohol, it's not negative by nature. However, if we have taken a vow in which we have made a promise to abstain from alcohol, breaking that is a negative action. So that's a prescribed misdeed. It's not negative by nature, but it's against some of the vows or the commitments that we have taken upon ourselves, if we have taken upon ourselves that. And so, first of all, in order to develop the power of regret, we need to know what we are working with. If we have no idea what we are regretting, there wouldn't be any it would be difficult to be really sincere about it. And so we think of the things that we have done throughout the day. And I can't think of a day in which there wasn't something that I cannot regret. A day passes, there's not even a single day when, I don't have either a sense of attachment or annoyance or concealment or pretension. I mean, this is how my mind works. This is how a mind works. So there's always something that I can regret. And definitely there are days in which I do things which I think at the end of the day, I should not have done that. That went really bad. It's against kind of, not only against, I guess, my idea of myself as Buddhist, but also it's not really suitable for an ordained person to do it, or it's not really suitable for someone that is taking the Bodhisattva vow to do. And so, or it's not really suitable for someone that has the tantric vow. There are different ways in which I can think about it. And so if we have the power of regret, all the other powers will follow through. If we don't have regret, or if our regret is really small, the other powers will also be quite weak, quite feeble. So also to the power of regret, we can add regret for negative actions we have done, not only today, but also in previous days, previous months, in our life, in previous lives. We don't remember those things, do we? No, I have no idea what I've done in my last life, but I can still think that there's things that I remember in this life. If I know that, I had jealousy and pride and I was divisive, in certain parts of my life, and I was, I harmed that person or another, it is very likely that I've done it also before in past lifetimes. So I don't remember those events. I mean, let alone not remembering what I've done in previous life. No, I can't remember what I'd done when I was, in each day of my life when I was 4 years old, or 10 years old, or 15 years old. I can think of isolated situations, but I don't remember each and every day, but certainly I've done things. And so when I generate the power of regret, I can think of, first of all, things I've done today, things that I can clearly recall, and also to use them as an example of things that I've definitely done in the past, even if I don't remember all the details. I'll call all of them to mind. And in order to generate the power of regret, it is crucial to regret them through thinking of the effects of those actions. I mean, so we don't just regret them because they were negative. We begin with thinking of, I regret having done them because, to begin with, they cause me suffering. Of course, they also cause suffering to others, but the beginning point is that they cause me suffering. If they cause me suffering, I do not want that. And then I extend kind of a build on that. But also because they cause other suffering, I do not want that. And if I cause myself and others suffering, it postpones my liberation and it postpones my enlightenment. So long as I harm others, I continue to harm others and not try to minimize that, let alone not being able to attain the state of Buddha, I will not be able to attain the state of liberation, and let alone not being able to attain the state of liberation. If I do not try to minimize my harmful attitudes, I will not also be able to, I will have a lesser chance of being born in a good state of rebirth in my next lifetime. And so when we think of the negative effects of our actions with the power of regret, then we can think of regretting natural misdeeds and prescribed misdeeds through contemplating the effect. So ripening effect, birth in a miserable state of existence, in a miserable rebirth. That's the ripening effect. So from actions of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and so forth. Currently we have no idea definitely that it will lead us to a particular or to a very specific birth, but we have certain guidelines from, for example, Lama Tsongkhapa's presentation of the steps of the path of enlightenment, from Pabokon Rinpoche's text, or from other texts, from the teachings of the Buddha, obviously. And so, in general, the guidelines is killing others, a strong killing others, but with having the intention to do that, performing the action, not regretting the action, but feeling that we've done a good thing and so forth. Those actions carry a lot of weight. And so we think that, well, actually, this action will bring about my own demise, a miserable rebirth. And so I don't want, no, I regret having done those actions before. And I can think of, luckily I haven't killed any human being before. I haven't committed any homicide, but I did kill other living beings. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I did kill. And also, I think that as a kid, maybe there was also some enjoyment in doing that. I wasn't like an animal torture, but I think, I probably have killed an animal or two. And so I regret that. This is definitely something that can bring my own negative rebirth, miserable rebirth. So that's considering the ripening effect. And then considering the environmental effect. Again, this is something that we can use in order to inform our contemplation when we think of Lama Tsongkhapa's presentation or other texts. And this is actually, that requires some trust in the working of karma. So it said that, for example, through killing, stealing, through bad-mouthing others, through lying, through telling stories about others and so forth, we experience environments which are harsh. We not only experience environments which are harsh, we are born into either poor environment, abusive environment which is not beautiful to see, which is quite rough. I think that requires some trust in the working of karma, and it's not, I think, something that we can take as a scientific project to prove that, for example, in this life I was born in a place that is subject to droughts or to famine or to plagues or to pandemics, because in previous lifetimes I killed someone, or I've lied to many other people, or I've taken their possessions, or I've taken, I cannot prove that scientifically, but still with my trust in, first of all, the teachings that I got in this life, the text that I'm reading, through thinking of events in my life, and I can see how certain actions that I do in this life also bring about certain results in this life. So through thinking about it from many different perspectives, my teachers and teachings and the teachings of the Buddha and my this lifetime's experience, I can also then deduce that it is likely that the environmental effects that are described in scriptures by Lama Tsongkhapa and such, they're probably quite true. And even if they're not precisely experienced as they're explained in some of the scriptures, it is likely that it is very similar to what is described in scripture. So I think of those environmental effects. I don't want to live in an environment, to be born into a situation where there would be no food and no water, and there would be no safety, and I will be born in an environment where people are dishonest, or people are used to being aggressive or abusive towards each other. I don't want to live in an environment in which there would be a lot of disturbances of the elements, natural calamities, and so forth. And so I need to regret negative actions that I've done before. But still, the most vital sense of regret that we need to develop is regret in considering effects which are similar to the cause, causally concordant effect. And so there are two types of causally concordant effects. There's one in terms of one's experience and one in terms of one's behavior. And so it is said that, for example, as a result of killing, we experience either short life of being killed or abused by others. As a result of stealing others, we experience similar results. So things that are either being lost or damaged or being taken away from us, either secretly or forcing us to do that. So we experience a certain situation which is similar to the cause that we have created. Now, the second one is in terms of one's behavior. And this is the worst type of effect that we can have. So we spoke about ripening effect. Sounds pretty horrible, to be born in a miserable state of rebirth. Environmental effect, this is terrible. the most terrible result is in terms of one's behavior. And in terms of one's behavior, it means that we're getting used to negative actions. So for example, getting used to not telling the truth. This is something that happens to all of us, I think. Now, if we get used to not telling the truth, but not just telling the truth in general, we don't tell the truth because there's something that we want to attain. I mean, if there's, for example, if there is a need to protect someone physically and mentally, and it involves not telling the truth as it is or to bend it slightly, there might be a need to do it. Not telling the truth to tell a lie with the intention to get something personally for ourselves, to misrepresent reality because we want to get the upper hand in a certain situation. If we do it repeatedly, we are getting used to it, and we start to downplay the effects of karma. And it's so difficult to put a stop to it. So killing and stealing and sexual misconduct and so forth, divisive speech, harsh speech. If we get used to those activities, we're going to do it again and again and again. It will be difficult to stop that behavior. And also we be constantly creating causes for future suffering in future lifetimes. So this is the worst type of behavior, of causally concordant effect that we can have. That's the worst. Because it ensures that will be a lot of suffering, like a continuous flow of suffering for us in future lifetimes. And so when we develop the power of regret, we think about all of this, but we also, I think, for me, I try to think about it in terms of regretting the habits that I developed. That's the worst. And so then here I link it up with, no, actually I'll wait with Barbara's question. Then, so that's the most important power, the power of regret. So if we have the power of regret, then the power of support, the power of restraint, the power of thorough application of the antidote, they will also be present in our process of purification. And so if we regret something it is said when I heard Tibetan teachers often say that when we think of the effects of negative actions, we think that I should not have done that. And the type of regret that we want to develop is as if we have eaten something, and after we've swallowed it, we've eaten it and swallowed it, we found out that it was poison. And we're going to die with excruciating pain. Currently, there is no pain, but we know that it's kind of now spreading through the body. It's in our guts, in our stomach, in our guts. It's spreading throughout the body. And soon we will die with pain. So thinking of this analogy, they say that the type of regret that we should have for negative actions that we've done before is similar to the regret in which we think that I should not have done that. I should not have eaten that thing because I'm going to soon die with great agony. And so if we think of the negative effects of our actions, in that they do bring about suffering in this and future lifetimes, and we do that based on solid trust in the working of karma, the regret that we will feel would be genuine. Now, here I speak about an ideal situation. This is not where we begin. Now, when I started, and I'm still doing practices of purification, we're still building up our trust in the working of karma. I didn't grow up believing in karma. That was not my cultural conditioning or social conditioning. No, we didn't believe in karma when I grew up. So for me, kind of to develop the power of regretting negative actions and what we will do, what we'll bring about in the future, it's still work in progress. So rather than trying to fake it, we just think about it. I think about it again and again. And I bring into that contemplation examples from situations that I have experienced in my life, and I try to keep it real as much as I can. I think that we cannot force trusting in karma. We cannot force it, but if we allow ourselves to continue to study, to continue to practice, to continue to think of the presentation of karma and how we experience reality in different areas of our life, how we become habituated with certain things, how we experience results of some actions in this life and how those results are often negative, we can then start to increase the trust that we have in the working of karma, and thereby the ability to feel a genuine, authentic sense of regret will build up. And so often the thing that we get, when we hear about the power of regret, at least earlier on, I felt that, I'm just faking it. I'm not keeping it real. I'm doing practices of Vajrasattva, but the intention is not there, because I do feel some sort of sense of regret, but definitely not as if I've taken poison. It's some regret, but I can move on. And so I think that this regret cannot be forced. We need to give it time, but also try to be authentic about it, and also to keep on thinking of karma, building an understanding of the mechanism of karma, at least kind of the different components in the performance of virtuous and non-virtuous actions, and to work on that. So that's the power of regret. Now, if we develop the power of regret, then the next thing that will be developed will be the power of restraint, in thinking that since that was a negative thing that I've done before, I will not do it in the future. But also here, in some presentations that I read before, they say also, and I'm paraphrasing that, they said that you have to keep it real. In that, if you think, for example, if you're addicted to alcohol, you have a drinking problem, or you're in a certain situation with another person relationship, and kind of you're lying sometimes, or you have harsh speech, or and you think that was a negative thing. I should not have drunk today. I should not have told that lie today. I should not have said this and that to that person today. Henceforth, I will never do it again. I mean, we consider it is likely that we will do it again. It's hard to avoid those negative things altogether. And so if we think that henceforth I shall never do it again, at least sometimes I think that, thinking of my ability to abstain from negative actions, I'm trying, but it's not that I can give up everything for the rest of my life and be pure. Just can't do it. My mind is still controlled by afflictions. And so a really helpful advice that is given in scripture is to have that intention to not do it ever again, but also to be more realistic in setting short-term goals. Like, for example, in thinking that, I have, like, for example, I have a drinking issue, for example. So it'd be hard to give it up altogether for the rest of my life. I'm going to at least in the next few days, I'm definitely going to do it. I have a problem with that person, and we always argue and fight. And I end up saying things that I regret I should not have said. Tomorrow and the day after, when I see that person, I will definitely not say anything negative. So setting short-term goals and working on them and do it again and again will be, and being successful in short-term goals will build up to being able to set those long-term goals and keep them. If we only work on long-term goals and set a general intention, which is unrealistic, it's good. It's not good. But I think that for me, it's really important also to set those short-term goals. At least I think that it's very like AA style. Today at least I will not drink. Today at least I will not do such and such. And I think that when I became a monk, that was actually quite a I wouldn't say funny, but it was, I guess, a good way to come in touch with reality, with respect to myself. So, when I became a monk, it was after living with the previous Geshe center for almost 9 years at the same house, working with a monastic community, having lots of Buddhist friends. So I thought I knew what I was into. And then I I became a monk, and I thought that, I know what needs to be done. I've lived with monks, I live with nuns, I know what it's all about, and it's going to be easy. It wasn't easy at all. It's like I became a monk, I thought myself, oh my God, it's so hard to abstain from all the things that I need to abstain from, even though I knew what I'm into. And so I decided then to adopt this AA approach. Now, this is the commitment that I made for the rest of my life. But at least today, as much as I can, I will guard my vow. And it works for me quite nicely. Actually, I think that kind of over time, I'd got rid of the panic of having to abstain from all those things for the rest of my life. I know that if I do it every day, if I take my approach into it to kind of today, I will guard my vow, things will work well. And it has worked well so far. So that's the power of restraint, thinking that henceforth, I shall not do it again. And then the power of support, the third power, although in the list it was mentioned as number one, we can speak about now the power of support. So the power of support is taken to be refuge and bodhicitta. These are the things that support my laying down of negativities, my purification. And the reason that we use these two is that you can say that although there are different ways in which we end up behaving negatively, in general, we behave negatively towards living beings or with respect to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So we behave negatively in relation to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, either in not keeping up the commitments, the pleasures, the vows that we have, or being disrespectful or kind of not trying to deceive them and so on and so forth. That's one way of creating negative actions. So to remedy that, we use the support of refuge. So in the practice, we go for refuge. So as we go for refuge and in our mind, we rely upon the three objects of refuge, we can also use that as the power of support for our purification of karma. I've gone for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And therefore, at the presence of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, I lay down my negativities. Which, by the way, in English, we use the word purification often. The word in Tibetan, shakpa, has one meaning of the word. One part of the word shakpa in Tibetan is to purify negative actions. But another part of it is to confess them out loud, to disclose them, not to kind of hold it close in our heart and kind of think that if the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha don't see me, I haven't done anything wrong, but to disclose it and then to say, I'm laying it down. I'm laying it bare in front of you and I will not do it again. This is what is, the different, I guess, parts of the word shakpa in Tibetan. So in English, we say purification, but the purification, I think that when I think of purification means that I'm laying it bare in front of, let's say, the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. It is there, and I regret it. And so the first power of support is refuge. The second power of support is bodhicitta. So we also perform negative actions in relation to others. We harm others through killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and so forth. And so we use bodhicitta, which is based on compassion, as the second power of support. So at the beginning of every purification practice, we go for refuge and we develop bodhicitta. And so we take this as a powerful support. This is the basis that we use for purifying our karma. And so here I will then, I'll still wait with Baba's question. I'm going to go to the fourth power and then go to Baba's question. And so the fourth power is called the power of thorough application of the antidote. And this is really interesting because the power of thorough application of the antidote is often explained in teaching. It is set up, well, when you apply the antidote, you do recitations or prostrations, or you do circumambulations and so forth, giving the impression that there is something physically or verbally that you need to do in order to make amends. So we, for example, have the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva Samaya, Manupalaya, and so forth, or we have the practice of the 35 Buddhas. Or, the Tibetan teachers say that you can do circumambulations. I mean, come on. I mean, where can we make circumambulations? And will it be kind of a go-to option if we purify negative actions? If we do it, that's okay. But I mean, this is not my default idea that, no, I've done something wrong. Now I'm going to circumambulate. And so when we think of when I think of what it means to apply an antidote, thorough application to antidote to things that I've done before, the antidote should be, first of all, generating an antidote in my mind stream. Like, for example, I've harmed someone because of anger. I've lied to someone because of attachment. I can also lie to someone because of anger. And so to apply a thorough application of the antidote would be to apply antidotes in my mind stream. If I'm angry at someone, and if I've done something bad because of anger, the first antidote is meditate on love and kindness and compassion towards that person. The first antidote would be to develop patience toward that person. If I've done a negative action because of attachment, then the best antidote, the first antidote to that should be meditating on antidotes to attachment. And so I can meditate on death and impermanence. I can meditate on the precious human rebirth. I can meditate on the unattractive aspects of the object that I'm attached to. I can meditate on the drawbacks of samsara, the drawbacks of suffering of change, looking after samsaric happiness that is bound to fail me at the end. I can meditate on all of those different things in order to reduce the power of attachment. And this is a thorough application of the antidote. If I do that, and then I do some recitations, Om Vajrasattva Samaya and so forth, that's excellent. But if I don't really reduce my own afflictive states of mind, I stand very little chance of being able to avoid negative actions in the future. Really, it has to first of all be done in reducing our own afflictive states of mind. And that being the case, you can say that the most thorough application of the antidote would be to meditate on emptiness or selflessness. And so a meditation on emptiness and selflessness sounds like a really difficult thing. I mean, definitely it's not an easy thing to do, but we start where we are. So if we start where we are, it means that first off, we need to continue to build our knowledge of the topic. What emptiness means, what selflessness means. Then to not only to build a knowledge, but also to contemplate that in relation to ourselves, in relation to everything around us. And we think about it, we have discussion with our peers, we have discussions with our Dharma friends, we have discussions with teachers or other people that we meet along the way. And so we continue to think about it. And then we remind ourselves, as I said daily, that things do not exist in the way that they appear. They exist in one way, as if they exist independently in and of themselves, but they don't exist in that way. They exist in depends upon cause and conditions, in depends upon parts. And also they exist in depends upon, that's the main thing, they exist in the way that a mind sees them. A mind imputes certain existence onto basis. But what a mind imputes doesn't exist in the basis. It exists in the way that the mind sees that. So, for example, we have an argument with another person, and the person seems to be a horrible person. And so in our interaction with that person, we hold on to that idea that that person is horrible. Every fiber of the being, that person is horrible. Every atom of the body is horrible. Every piece of the mind is absolutely obnoxious. I mean, even if we don't think about it in those words, this is the attitude that we bring into sometimes a conflict that we have with another person, either directly or just someone that we dislike from the media, politics, or what have you. Every fiber of the being is disagreeable. And so when we think about it, then if we think about kind of everything that is obnoxious or disagreeable with that person, it is in a way that our mind sees that. But if we look at the body of that person, or different parts of the mind of the person, we might in the body of the person, there is no horrible person, horrible being. It is likely that a certain negative attitude of that person have tipped us over. But also when we look at different parts of the mind and try to identify what is so obnoxious and horrible about that person, what we will find is that what is terrible is anger or attachment in the mind stream of that person. Ignorance is terrible in the mind stream of that person. But the mind of the person is a mind that is controlled by anger, attachment, and ignorance. It's not that the person decides or chooses to be obnoxious or horrible because they want to. It is because the mind is controlled by anger, attachment, and ignorance. And our mind is also controlled by those afflictive states of mind. And we also behave in an obnoxious way when those become very strong. And so we remind ourselves that the mind imputes, or it is a subjective approach that we have to the world around us, in which we try to cement those qualities, to attribute those really firm and stable qualities onto things. But it's very much coming from the perspective of the way that the mind sees that. And if we look for things in the way that the mind sees them, we'll not be able to find them. And so things do not exist in the way that they appear. And this is the most powerful antidote that we can apply to negativities, because any negativity that we perform is based on afflictive states of mind. And all afflictive states of mind are based on ignorance. And so if in any possible way we will undermine ignorance in thinking that, for example, things do not exist in the way that they appear, it's just this presentation around me of myself and other things as if everything exists inherently by some power, this is not true. This is definitely not true. Even thinking about it like that will bring a little bit the power of ignorance. And this is a thorough application of the antidote. If ignorance is weakened, other afflictions will become weakened. And therefore, long term, we'll be able to avoid negative behavior in a better way. And so to apply thorough application of the antidote in our mind in terms of dealing with our afflictive states of mind is crucial. So that on top of that, we can add recitation, Om Mani Padme Hum, or Om Vajrasattva Samaya, or to do the practice of 35 Buddhas. If we add those kind of things into a practice of purification, it's going to, I guess, build up our purification. Now, sometimes they say, I confess all my negativities individually, which means that negative actions done by body, I will also make amends with physical actions. Verbal negative actions done by speech, I will also purify them through speech. So we can do prostrations, we can do circumambulations, we can do recitations, we can meditate on loving kindness and compassion and so forth. But the most important thing is to address our afflictive states of mind, because they are what motivates negative actions. So these are the situations of thorough application of the antidote. And so now I'm going to then look at the question that Barbara asked in the previous week. And so I'm pasting it here. So Barbara said, when you talk about the imprints of ignorance, it sounds similar to what people sometimes call being triggered. That experience is usually based upon past trauma. If trauma is pre-verbal, then the destructive emotion can arise in the body from a place you cannot access in the moment. How can we get to the root of it? How can we dissolve rather than repress the imprint? Is the work on this be done outside of that moment of reactivity? And so I wanted to bring that question in because it ties quite well to what the meaning of purification is. So we spoke about, we said that the power of repudiation at the end of the day is about purifying negative actions. So in what way do negative actions purified? Does it mean that we're never, ever going to experience the result of those actions? Does it mean that if we do a single session of Vajrasattva or medicine or 35 Buddhas or other practices, we will not experience any negative actions, the result of any negative actions we've done before? So it's not the case. Lama Tsongkhapa says in his presentation of the Lamrim, it says negatives are eliminated in several ways. He said that, for example, small suffering occurs instead of great suffering of birth in a miserable realm. So suppose that, for example, I've killed another living being, an action that could have resulted in being born in a hellish state of existence. But then I perform a practice of purification. And so rather than that negative action resulting in a miserable rebirth, I experience suffering in this life. Small suffering occurs instead of great suffering of birth in the miserable realms. Or another option, even if you are born in a miserable realm, you do not experience its suffering. Or another option, a mere headache in the present life serves to remove negativities created previously. And so I thought that kind of to then link it up with Barbara's question. Sometimes we experience results of actions. No, we don't know which action created that result. I'm experiencing pain or suffering now. I cannot explain that. That, as you said, it can be trauma that is pre-verbal, but also it could be the result of some things, some things that we've done in previous life. How would we know? How can we address them? Well, first off, we have no idea what created it in most cases. But also we can think that, well, it could just as well be a result of action I've done in previous lives that could have been way more difficult or harsh or terrible. But because of my practice, practice that includes being genuine about it, bringing into my practice love and compassion, reduction of afflictions and so forth, I experienced difficult situations in this life. And so, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, a mere headache in the present life serves to remove negativities created previously. Or small suffering occurs instead of great suffering of birth in the miserable realms. And also Lama Tsongkhapa says negativities whose effects you must experience for a long time may become ones whose effects you experience only for a short time, or that you need not experience at all. So, and there are other ways in which negativities are eliminated. And so going back to Barbara's question, we experience sometimes terrible situations in our life from past traumas. But, at least from a Buddhist perspective, it could be past traumas in this life, but it could also be past traumas in previous life. We don't remember. And sometimes I think that, we can think of this non-remembering in two ways. Sometimes I can think that if I would remember what I've done in previous life, but also the suffering that I've experienced in this life, it would be so much more helpful in terms of purifying negativities, but also thinking of the drawbacks of samsara would be very powerful. But also at the same time, let's say that if I remember all the things that have occurred to me in past lifetimes, including all the suffering and the various ways in which I was killed and died in previous lifetime, I will probably be living in a constant post-traumatic stress. It would be hell. And so, it's unfortunate that we can't remember, but also it's good that we can't remember in some sense. At least we can function. And so we don't know when we experience a certain thing, something triggered it, but often we just don't know. But there are ways in which we can change our perspective towards that. And this is where this is the inner work that we need to do in terms of working with practices of purification and building a trust in karma and thinking of the future. So currently what I experience is terrible. I can think about it. One way of thinking about it, it could have been way worse. I couldn't know it. It's a result of negative action, but it could have been brought to fruition now because I'm practicing Dharma, which means that because of my Dharma practice, some portion of that action was purified rather than ending up in a terrible event in future lifetimes. It is a lesser type of pain in this life. Now, this is something that we need to practice for ourselves rather than tell others to practice, although I speak about it. But often I think that, we can sometimes become slightly, maybe insensitive about it. Like, for example, something really bad happens to one of our Dharma friends. So we can tell them, well, that's the power of karma. It is because of all your own karma that you experienced that. Or actually, it's good that you experienced that because now you are purifying negative actions. I mean, it might be helpful, but it might be that we're just saying that without really meaning it. I think that when I think about it, I try to think about it in relation to myself. If I have a good friends and they're asking for an advice, and there's a way that I can reach out to them and kind of change their perspective of a certain situation, I might do it. But in general, I think that those contemplations are pretty personal. I experienced something that is terrible. Well, if I really trust in karma, that's the result of my own karma. I can't remember what the action was, but luckily I experience it now, where I have a mind that can deal with that can use that in order to kind of transform it to spiritual growth in this life and future lifetimes. It's not always easy. It can be post-trauma, processing trauma is hard. I mean, I never had any kind of something, I haven't had so far something that was deeply distressing and painful in my life, no, luckily. So someone that does deal with trauma, it's way more difficult. It requires a lot of effort and strength. But I think that those are some of the tools that we can bring into that experience and try to change our perspective. And so not only that, to that, we can also bring into that experience, and we can also then include that in the practice of thought purification of the antidote. We can also bring the portion of self-cherishing, purifying self-cherishing and increasing our attitude of cherishing of others. So we experience something that is terrible. And we can think, well, my pain is here at the moment. It's already here. It cannot be prevented because it's already taken effect. Since it's here, if there's any possibility that I will take upon myself also the suffering of others, and thereby others will not have to go through the same pain, I'll happily do it because the pain is already here. It's quite difficult to do when the pain is already there. I remember that many years ago, I had like a really horrible toothache. And it was just between Christmas and New Year's. I couldn't find, it was difficult to find an open clinic to kind of give me a root canal. So no, it was like the pain was terrible and painkillers were not working. And I was kind of trying to think every once in a while, may I take upon myself all the toothaches of anyone that has ever experienced toothache. No, I was trying to think about it, but it was kind of, the pain was so strong that it was kind of really difficult to have a clear mind, a clear intention. But we try our best. At least if we say that in words, if we express that, if we say that on the long term, hopefully it will have some effect. So we kind of use those events also to try to, and I think that those kind of, when we do it like that, I think that the psychological effect of that, if you will, would be to try to take the focus of a me and turn it to focusing on others. And that also, I think that when we, if we only think of ourselves and we get completely entrenched in only think of ourselves, we make our suffering greater. If we think, may I be able to free other sentient beings, we shift the focus from ourselves to others, and thereby our ability, I think, to deal with a difficult situation becomes better. And so I have an appointment, I'm sorry to say, in half an hour. And so I will have to probably bring it into a closure now. And we haven't really spent a lot of time speaking of the power of dedication, which is the last of the 5 powers. So let's speak about it for a couple of minutes. I think that's kind of, all of us are used to dedication, but the idea is that at the end of the day, as we look at a passing day, and when we think of the things that we have done, we purify negative actions using those four powers. The 4 powers are crucial, but also we think of the things that have gone well. So it doesn't have to be either look at negative actions and not look at the rest. We take into account positive things and negative things. We want to rid ourselves of negative actions, but also to encourage our mind to do better tomorrow and long term. And this is what we focus on in the power of dedication, kind of making risk. You can say with the positive things, becoming more resolute that we will continue to do that. We'll do it better and deeper tomorrow, in the following week, this month, or this year. That's kind of short term, but also long term. We think that we want to use all those causes that we create, those we call them roots of virtue. We want to use all those roots of virtue for the sake of our own our own enlightenment so that we can be of maximum benefit to others. And so I think that each and every one of us has, maybe has a personal practice in which we finish it with making extensive dedication prayers. So there are quite a lot of verses and formula that we use in order to dedicate. But I think that first and foremost, it needs to be something that comes from the bottom of our heart. We use those verses in order to kind of formalize a particular thing, but it's good to make it a feeling, heartfelt. So we want to make it heartfelt so that we'll be able to be of benefit to others, to abstain from harming others, to make it heartfelt so that everything that we do will transform into causes for our own liberation, and also will transform to causes for our own enlightenment, so that we'll be able to be of maximum benefit to others. That's how we finish our day. And it's good to finish our day in this way, because it is said that if we go to sleep with a positive state of mind, virtuous state of mind, it will also then have an effect over sleep. And sleep is a changeable mental factor, in that if our sleep is virtuous and also our dreams are good, and also if we set a good intention, there's a better chance that it will also affect our dreams. So if we set this virtuous intention, it is also very likely that we will continue to accumulate virtue in our dreams, in our sleep. And then if that happens, it is also very possible that we will wake up in the morning with a mind that is fresher, or kind of with some residue of positivity in the morning. And that builds up. I mean, kind of when I think of, for example, the description of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or Kyabje Lama Sopa Rinpoche, the way that they start the day. Actually, I haven't heard much from Lama Sopa Rinpoche, but I've heard it from His Holiness the Dalai Lama in different teachings that he gave. And I think about it, kind of, setting that intention in the morning is something that His Holiness, for example, has been doing for more than 80 years. I mean, if you do it, if you build your practice as 80 years, every day you go to sleep with dedicating your virtue. And then you come out, you wake up in the morning with a mind that is still virtuous. This momentum just moves forward. It doesn't stop. It continues to flow forward. And this is the momentum that we want to create and maintain at the end of the day, that will then connect us with the following day. And so altogether, when we think of, now I'm bringing it to closure. So we spoke of, in the last 4 weeks, of the 4 powers, which are integrating a spiritual practice into breaking into daily segments, but then altogether they come together to a continuous flow of making progress in building up virtue for the rest of our lives. So we set an intention in the morning, we and let that affect whatever we do during the day, and then we create habituation. We use seeds that we've created before, but also creating new seeds. We check out negative states of mind as much as we can during the day. And also during the day, if there are moments in which we can employ the 4 powers to purify negative actions that have just been created, perfect. Or at the very least, we do it at the end of the day with the power of repudiation. And then before we go to sleep, again, generate a positive state of mind, wanting to do better tomorrow and henceforth. That will create this momentum in my life, I believe. And so we have to leave it here for now. I apologize. But I would like to thank everyone that came here, because it gave me an opportunity to think about the 5 powers, which I'm trying anyway to also integrate into my practice. But it's always good to have to refresh it, to have fresh perspective. So thank you very much for giving me that opportunity. I hope that it was as useful for you as it was useful for me. And also I want to thank Paula. That was indeed very wonderful to meet you. Arigato. And also, I think that for all the people that are involved with the name of the center, Tupten Nobeling. Yeah, Tupten Nobeling. To everyone that is involved with Tupten Nobeling, because of them, we can meet and discuss the 5 powers. So thank you very much for everyone in New Mexico or everywhere around the world. And particularly, we also want to dedicate it for the welfare of all the people that are involved with the center, but also the teachers of the center. So I think that Geshe Sherab, Geshe Sopa, of course, the spiritual director of the FPMT, under the auspice of which we can have those discussions, and we're all guided by His Holiness and Dalai Lama. So definitely also dedicating for Lama Zopa Rinpoche, His Holiness to have a long life, and for all their activities to continue to flourish. And so we'll use some dedication verses to wrap it up for today. May the Supreme Jewel Bodhicitta that is not arisen arise and grow, and may that which is arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha, and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. And for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain till samsara ends. Several of the Stoneland teachings and transmigrated beings who makes extremely clear the path of this unification of emptiness and compassion. To Lotus Holder, Tenzin Gyatso, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And finally, for the long life of Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you uphold the Sibyu's moral way, who serves in the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading my Janus victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels. Sever of myself and others, your disciples, please live long.
Thank you so much, Venerable. Please come back and teach us again.